Hello everybody, Steve Griffiths here, developer of the MTPredictor software program. In today's webinar, well actually, let's start with our risk disclaimer first. So if you can see the screen and you can see the risk disclaimer there, just let me know in the question box so we know you can see and hear me. Just remind you that all examples in this training room should be considered as hypothetical. No trades are actually taken, they're just shown for illustration and training purposes only. Remind you there's a risk of loss in trading and investing. Put another way, all professional traders know and understand, but more importantly, accept that losses can and will and do unfold. Same for any trading approach, that always will be losing trades. Right, so quite a lot to cover today, as I was away on holiday last week. It's very nice to have a week away from the markets and then come back. So today I'd like to start by looking at some end of day work with our standalone version, MTPredictor 8. I promised, I think it was another Steve, a couple of weeks ago that I would look at that. So hopefully he's in the room today. If not, catch up on the recordings. Then I want to go back to real-time data, have a look at some index E-minis and some Forex charts from over the last couple of weeks. Right, so for end of day data, MTPredictor 8.1 can scan data in Metastock or ASCII format. So all we have to do in that is I've set up a connection here. I'm not going to reset it up, but basically it's my data saved on my PC. So I've just set up three different, it's just basically different folder paths with the Dow Jones, the NASDAQ, and the indices is in there. So it just basically tells MTPredictor where the data is actually stored. So just going to get rid of that. So I'm just going to do a connect like you do with real time, file connect to the connection. And all that's doing is just telling MTPredictor where to look. So how do we approach using MTPredictor for scanning sort of daily, end of day daily charts? Well, as for our real-time stuff, we look for the higher time frame charts to have a clear picture. But also what we can do is we can start by looking at the index. So let's say have a look at the NASDAQ 100. So if you're looking at that, the first thing you do is have a look at the NASDAQ 100. So I'm just going to go and have a look under my indices. Because it's all just end of day data. I'm going to come down to the NQ, the NASDAQ 100. So I'm just going to draw this daily chart. That's all it is, just a daily chart, and have a look at that. Because the idea being is what you want to do is you want to not only have your individual stocks in line with their higher time frame charts, you also want to be in line with the index. And perhaps I'll go back and have a look at what the market was doing when we had our last webinar. And if I go back using training mode, I think our last webinar was 2 weeks ago, which was there. So if you remember what I was looking at from the prior pivot high here, right mouse click. Remember I was talking about in great detail actually last 2 weeks ago how we were at a higher time frame resistance. So this is a major resistance here. And as you can see, what's happened since then, you know, the market has pretty much fallen like a stone actually the week I was away. So, you know, this fall here last week should have come actually as no surprise to any one of you who were in the webinar last week, because we went into great detail of how we're at resistance. Look at that, just fell really sharply. So if you were back around here, you would then know you're at resistance on your index. So what do you do now? Well, now let's open up a scanner. You don't see me use the scanner much when I'm doing the real-time stuff, do you? So it's interesting to watch me use this. So here I'm going to now select a local folder, and I'm going to come down and select the NASDAQ 100 folder. And I'm just going to leave it at day. You can do weekly if you want, but I'm just going to leave it at day and download these. And now you can see that it's the NASDAQ 100 is just coming in nicely. By the way, I wouldn't suggest scanning thousands and thousands of stocks, because not only will it take absolutely ages, but you may well run out of memory on your PC. And also you'll get so many hits that you just can't do any meaningful analysis. So that's why it's best to have your data provider split your data into different folders on your PC, like I had here, the Dow 30, NASDAQ 100, and you can have the S&P 500. So once the scan's finished, as you can see it has here, you can just click on the trade setups, and that then gives you a list of potential trade setups to follow. The easy way to do this is if you highlight one, right mouse click, do new chart, that will then bring the chart up. And what I suggest is if you're, and this is quite a good tip for loads of you, is that you link the chart and the scanner together. So I'm going to go up to the tab here, and I'm going to link this symbol to be red. I'm now going to highlight all items in the chart by holding my shift key down and clicking them so all highlighted, right mouse click, link, and link them as red. Why do I do that? Well, the reason I do that is, go back up to the chart to get top of the chart again, is now if I click on the another item, can you see how it changes the chart here? So you just click on one of these items here in the scanner, and it now changes it in the chart for you. So it gives an easy way just to go through. In fact, I use your mouse key just to go through like that, the scan results very quickly and easy, changing that single chart. You don't have to keep opening loads and loads of tabs. It just bogs everything up. So that's a quick and easy way to do that. So let's have a look and imagine we were back 2 weeks ago, and I think I did a video on the main website that was up a couple of weeks ago as well. And in that, I found a couple of stocks at the time. Again, this was a couple of weeks ago, and one of them was this one here, which was Lamb Research. So let's imagine you were a few weeks ago and this one came up in your scanner. How would you then look at this in conjunction with knowing that the NASDAQ was at a potential resistance area? Well, first and foremost, you'd obviously be looking for sells because it was at a potential resistance area. But if you had a few setups come through, like we've seen here, how do you then decide which is the best? Well, we use exactly the same approach as we do for our shorter term stuff. So if you had a VS sell here on your daily, what you'd do is go out to the weekly. And by the way, if you've got daily data, we can convert it to weekly on the fly. So if you do weekly, it will then convert a weekly chart for you. So you've gone back to the previous high, which would have been here. Right mouse click, done decision point. So can you see how that's weekly resistance? So now when you come down to the daily chart, can you see how that VS sell was not only on a red or stroke black MTP trend, but it was also at higher time frame resistance. So in other words, this was a good one to take. So right mouse click over the red sell bar, do analysis, and there's your same position sizing. Remember, you can set up under accounts and risk. If you go to risk profiles for stocks, you can set up what amount of risk you want to take per lot, and obviously the offset entry as well. So you can do how much risk you want to take. And obviously it'll be a lot less than you normally do for futures, because obviously you can't get the margin required for stocks. And obviously as well, you can set up different size accounts. This is a $20,000 account. If you say had a $10,000 account, obviously the position sizing would be adjusted accordingly as well. But you see the approach we actually do is that it's pretty much similar to as we do real time, where we look to find daily setups, but unfolding in a clear weekly position. In other words, on the higher time frame, but also being in conjunction with the NASDAQ chart. By the way, it's very interesting. If you go back, you see how the NASDAQ's been rallying up into that high there very nicely on a blue MTP trend. Look at that TS4 buy setup we had back in May. If I right mouse click, do analysis, look where the target was there. So that was a pretty good run all the way up into that high there as well. Just take that all off. Just put the resistance back on again. So does that make sense on what we're trying to do, in that you set the index first, or get the idea on the index first to give you sort of a bigger picture of what the whole index is doing. You can then run your scanner to then find individual setups. When you've got the individual setup like that, you then do the weekly chart or the higher time frame chart on the individual stock to see whether it fits in with a clear picture. So it's exactly the same approach as we do on a 3-minute chart, so 4-hourly Forex, or all the other things we're going to look at later. But obviously here you're relying on your scanner more, because obviously this is not real time, this is daily data, so it's not moving, and you'll just do your scan each day. And if you say now I wanted to scan a different, let's scan the, actually no, so what we'll do, we'll open another scanner actually. So here what you can do is if we do another scanner, you can see it puts it in a tab there. Let's scan the Dow Jones. Obviously it's a lot quicker because there's not that many in the Dow Jones. There it is doing there. So it's now doing the Dow Jones as well. And you see how the scanner has tabs there, so you can actually set up lots of different ways of actually looking at this. So that's the NASDAQ 100. So are there any questions on the approach for using our standalone version for scanning end of day data? It's not something that I've looked at very often, but I was asked this a couple of weeks ago, so I thought I'd spend a little bit of time now just to go through the approach that we use. As you can see, it's pretty similar to what we look at for every other market. So any questions on that before I swap over to real-time data and have a look at some other more real-time examples? Carl, I haven't done a particular video on the setup on doing this. If you want to, if you go to our MTPredictor website, then go to my YouTube channel. I think not the last video, the video before I did actually just covered exactly what I've done now. And that's all there is really. There isn't much to it on the actual setup. If you wanted to do for NinjaTrader, you just load the daily data into a market analyzer in NinjaTrader. So a similar kind of approach, but I'm just doing this in our standalone version. Right, let's now swap over to real-time data. This is the beauty of actually having our standalone, but you can have different workspaces. So I'm now just going to open, and layouts. I'm just going to open a different layout. I'm going to open my IQ feed layout. And now it's going to prompt me to save my current layout. So I'll come back to that now saying, okay, change data feed, because I use IQ feed here. It's just opening up there. This is my Forex page here, just coming in. Right, while it does that, let's go back and have a look at the USE minis. Oh, we had quite a rally here. Because what I want to look at now is a slightly longer term chart on the 24-hour chart, because there's a few people that I've been talking to as well say, okay, I want to do real-time data, but I don't want to necessarily just use the day session on 3-minute charts. I'm perhaps in Australia. Eric down in Australia had a look at this as well, and I want to on slightly longer term charts. So again, we use exactly the same approach. In this case, I'm not using the day session, which is from 9:30 to 16:15 New York time. I'm using the 24-hour session, and this time on a 15-minute chart. So I want to go back on a little while to have a look at the NQ, and in particular, the NQ up here. So again, how do we approach using MTPredictor? Is it a black box system where you take all the setups blindly, perhaps in the direction of our MTP trend, or is it something different? Well, for you guys who've been with us for a while will know it's something different. The reason is markets are random half the time, probably slightly more than half the time. So what we're looking to do is we're looking to have that point of clarity. Yes, Carl, it's the YM I'm looking at, not the NQ. Sorry, I'm looking at the YM now. That point of clarity when the picture's clear, in particular on the higher time frame chart. So for that, we again go to a higher time frame chart, which is between 3 and 5 time frames higher. So if you're on the daily chart like we had earlier, you'd go out to the weekly. If you're on the weekly, you'd go out to the hourly chart. So I just want to go back again using training mode, go back to perhaps around here somewhere. So here we had the last pivot high. So I'll right mouse click, do decision point. There it is on the chart in advance. So that's what I want to get you guys to do, particularly with real time. I don't really want you to sit here following the scanner. The scanner is great for the end of day data because you're scanning lots and lots of stocks. But when you're in real time, the scanner is just there to help confirm what you're looking for. So here you'd be anticipating potential resistance out there in advance. If I turn training mode off, you can see this is what it did on the hourly chart. It went right up there into resistance and made a nice reversal. So when you come down to the time frame you're trading, and I want to go back here, this again is what you're looking for. So it's exactly the same picture as we saw on our daily stock. Here was a setup on a 15-minute chart, which is what you're looking to trade, coming in at higher time frame resistance. Our MTP trend was telling you the same thing. So you can see the picture's clear. In other words, it's coming together. There's no ambiguity. There's no, well, I'm not quite sure what it's doing. Everything's coming together quite nicely. So if you wanted to, you could have actually had a nice trade set up, whoops, off that VS sell down to the low there for a nice 5-hour profit. To take that back up to default account. But the trade setup that I like better than that is this one here. So can anyone tell me why I would particularly like that particular trade setup? I mean, obviously you've seen the chart and it goes down, but what kind of trade setup is this? What kind of trade setup does this look like? Yep, Abdul, it's the old, what we used to call the old holy grail. We've now renamed that to a W3 or wave 3 trade setup. The reason we like this is because this is a potential wave 2. In other words, we're looking for a potential ABC correction into a potential wave 2. Why do we like that? Well, because after a wave 2, in Elliott wave terms, you normally get a wave 3. A wave 3 is normally the strongest and longest in a completed 5-wave sequence, therefore normally has the biggest move. But this is the kind of picture we're looking for. You see, we're looking for the market to make a meaningful reversal at higher time frame support or resistance in this case. This is where we start the Elliott wave count. And this is why I developed my unique isolation approach to Elliott wave, is because markets are random half the time, I don't believe that you can fit all the patterns in together one after the other because the market goes random and the whole lot falls apart. So what we do is I say, well, actually now the market is actually doing what we anticipate, making a meaningful reversal at higher time frame resistance. Therefore, I start the sequence here. So if you start it here, the initial move down will be wave 1. I know this is 1 or A, but this is actually wave 1. You have an ABC correction up into wave 2. Therefore, if you get a sell set up here in this case, the most likely move after that, or the one we're anticipating, is a wave 3. And as you can see here, it's done our position sizing to vary the number of lots, contracts, or shares. This case, less than 2% on a sample $20,000 account. But you see why I like this is because the potential profit is large in relation to the initial risk. So when you're wrong by 1 risk unit, but if you're right, the profit is almost 10 times the initial risk. But this is the kind of picture you're looking for. And this is what I keep stressing week after week after week after week, is that I want you guys to only trade when you get a clear picture. Half the time it won't. And I know it's very difficult sitting on your hands waiting for trades that are not clear. In fact, I'll come on to talk about Bill in Australia for a bit. He'll probably review this in the recording about some of the Forex trades he's looked at. And he emailed in saying, you know, he's had some really good trades recently because he had the patience to wait till everything became nice and clear. And I cannot stress this enough. This is what we're looking for, the ideal picture. Of course, if I turn training mode off, you all know what the NQ has done since then. Straight down there into the typical wave 3 WPT for a profit of 10R. That is the lump you want to trade down there. What happens after this? I know people say, oh, well, it could have gone down. What's the Elliott wave pattern saying? This is the confusing part. This is where it suddenly goes all random again. This is where you don't want to sit there trying to forecast or anticipate what's going on. You just accept that through this area here, you don't know. It's the fog. It's the don't know section. Now, this is the whole point of how to trade well, is when it's not clear, don't worry about it. Do nothing. Because there will be times like this when it's beautifully clear and you get a nice, lovely trade setup. No one's forcing you to trade. It's only your broker who wants you to trade lots because they want the commission. Don't pander to their whims. Only trade when it's nice and clear. So does that make sense to everyone? You know, that's what we're looking for. Good, clean trade setups then get you in to have the profits that are large and losses small. That's what we're looking for. So that was a lovely trade setup. I know Eric from Australia as well. He sent me an email saying he caught that and was very pleased to see that trade. So well done to Eric then. It was a good trade setup from him there. So if I go over to Forex now, let's have a look at exactly the same procedure. On the euro, not a lot's been going on. US dollar, Swiss franc. Interesting enough, we had a DP sell up there when the MTP trend had gone from blue to red. Now, on this particular chart, you say, well, okay, how does that look in conjunction with the higher time frame? Well, this is what we do, because if you've been trading this one, you'd have gone out to, say, the daily chart. That's where the 4-hour DP sell came in. Should have gone back to the previous high. Remember, you'd have done this in advance. So you'd have had this decision point level on your chart in advance. So look how much clearer this trade now looks. Do you see that? The market has now gone up into higher time frame resistance. You've now got a DP sell. The MTP trend is grey. And for you Elliott wave purists, this is an ABC correction we saw on the daily chart. And if you look at this up into here on your Elliott wave, there's actually a 5-wave sequence. So wave C subdivided into wave 5. So the whole lot came together really nicely. So now if you right mouse click, do analysis, there is your initial trade. A nice 4.3-hour profit. So here's a question for you. Because you've done the analysis on your higher time frame, do you really want to take a little trade like that? In other words, something small. Because if you go out to the higher time frame chart, this is what I'm trying to get you guys to do. Is first and foremost, when you come to MTPredictor, I want you guys to lose less. In other words, lose small. In other words, have small losses. Once you get the hang of doing that, the next side of the coin is to have big profits. And I've been trying to stress this over the last few weeks. And for that, you have to let the markets run. That's what I've been talking about, is that if you do not give them time, then you will never get the big trades if you're looking to come out small. So let's have a look at what the market was doing here. Well, here's a TS3 sell. So what does that mean? Well, it means the market is probably going to go down to new lows. So at the very least, whoops, you want to be, or not at the very least, I want to come back into the other, I was sort of thinking about two things at once there, sorry. You want to be looking down the bottom here because you're looking to have the market to make new lows off that TS3 sell, off that ABC sell. So now when you come back to the 4-hourly chart, this is where you want to be aiming for, all the way down here. But actually what I should have said beforehand is, as this is a 5-wave sequence, if the market goes beyond the wave 4 here, where is the next initial target? So the initial target of a completed 5-wave sequence is the DP from the wave 4. Where's the next target? Yes, Sylvian, the YM was actually a 15-minute trade. Yep, it retraces the full sequence. You go back to the full sequence, right mouse click there. That is your decision point area. So I think at the very least, rather than looking to come out with a small profit, at the very least, you want to be coming down to here. Can you see how suddenly having an 8-hour profit rather than just a 3.5 one makes life a lot easier for you in the long run? And then if you're really brave, coming down here to, anywhere around 14R. So this is what you've got to try and look to do. You've got to try and look to run your trades further. At the very least, if you're starting to make profits of 8, 9, 10R, it makes life a lot easier when the losses come through, and they will come through. So I thought that was a nice trade that unfolded there as well. So if we go through the British pound, going down to new lows, picture's not really clear at the moment. US dollar, Japanese yen. Well, interesting enough, there we had a VS sell up there. Our MTP trend had gone black. It doesn't look anything special, but let's again go out to the higher time frame chart. Oh, here's my analysis I was doing earlier. So let's take the trading mode and go back to right the way here. This was ages ago. As you can see, I've already put that on. That's a 5-wave sequence. You've already told me that the first target off a completed 5-wave sequence is the DP from the wave 4. So this is on a daily chart. So you could have had this on your chart weeks and weeks and weeks ago as an area of potential resistance. Do you see what I'm trying to do? I'm trying to get you to anticipate in advance. Of course, now, when you see the market go up into this level here, you can see that it's an area of where potential resistance. Now, that looks like an ABC correction. If it makes an ABC correction, then the next target is probably the DP right off this wave 5 low here. So it's going to new lows. So now, if we go back to the time frame you're looking at, first and foremost, can you see how that suddenly looks to be a much better trade? In other words, you've got a VS sell. Our MTP trend was grey, but is at higher time frame resistance. That resistance you would have been waiting for literally days, weeks in advance. So if we now place our analysis on, there's the official first target, 8.7R. Down here at 10R is your next daily one. So either of those, even if you'd come out at this level here, you know, if you're looking to take profits early with 8R, that's so much better than trying to take them early with 2 or 3R. But the whole point is, this is what we're looking at. We're looking to have stuff when the picture's clear. Is it clear the whole time? Of course not. And I think this is what Bill from Australia was actually sort of saying, is that a month or so ago, he emailed me and said how frustrating it was because there weren't any clear pictures. In other words, the market really wasn't doing what it should do. It was just random. But then I got an email through this morning giving a whole list of trades that he'd made some really nice setups on. And this is what happens, is the markets go through cycles, and that suddenly you'll have a whole bunch of nice trades all coming in looking absolutely picture perfect. And then you'll suddenly have stuff where there's nothing going on. The pattern's not clear, or the setups aren't really working out. And that's what trading is all about. It's about going in cycles. So does that make sense to everyone, in that what we're looking for is we're looking for everything to come together at higher time frame support or resistance, or the picture being clear? Because it's all too easy here to say, well, actually, why couldn't you have got in on that DP buy there? Well, first and foremost, MTP trend's red. Secondly, it's missed the DP resistance. So even though the market went up, it was not a clear, clean picture. So this is not what we're looking to try and do. We're looking to try and catch these ones where everything comes together in a clear picture. Does that make sense to everyone? And are there any questions on this so far? Are there any questions on what what we've looked at? It's basically going over exactly the same as we go over week after week after week after week. But I'm hoping that repetition is really the way to sort of bang this home again and again and again. No matter whether you're using daily charts with weekly for the higher time frame, whether you're looking to use Forex charts, say 4 hourly and daily, whether you're looking to have slightly longer term time frame, 15-minute charts with hourly, or even if you're coming down to even the shorter time frame charts as well. TJ, he said, is the best setup? The best setup is when the picture's clear. Simple answer. Because interesting yesterday, I mean, here's perhaps we ought to look at yesterday, because I don't know about you, but I don't like it when gurus and software vendors skip over stuff that's obviously not ideal, because yesterday the market was going down. So in hindsight, it would have been great to say, yes, you'll be able to get some sell setups. But here is our higher time frame support, which on a 3-minute chart would have been a 15-minute chart. There is a DP buy that came in at 15-minute support. So that would be a good one to take because the picture was clear. But as you can see, it did not work out as anticipated. And I think it's really important to show things like this, is that not everything will work out as anticipated. You will make losing trades. You will get into a trade that initially looks like it's going well. Then suddenly the market will turn over. Can you hear me now? A few of you said lost audio. Can you hear me now? Is it coming back in again now? Okay, not quite sure what happened there. Gremlins in the works there. So what I was saying is yes, you will have times when the market does not do as anticipated, does not play ball, but that's just what trading is all about. And I thought it was very important after we've had looked at such some really good examples to show you an example from yesterday that just didn't work out. Right. So have we got any questions? Have we got any questions on what I've been talking about so far? Everyone seems quite quiet. So hopefully it all makes sense to everybody. I mean, if you're using NinjaTrader, it's exactly the same approach. The tools in NinjaTrader are exactly the same as we have in our standalone version. I'm just using the standalone version today because I wanted to start off with looking at the daily charts. But hopefully you guys are happy with this and using this in your own trading and doing exactly the same. In other words, you're waiting until the picture's clear, and when it's clear, yeah, Emil. Okay, Emil was saying let's use training mode. So Emil was saying, what happens if you're in this particular position here? That's what you're saying, weren't you, Emil? You're saying you looked like you had a good setup here. The market was going with you. Your MTP trend was a bit sort of ambiguous. It wasn't really going either way. You're sitting on 2.4R. You hadn't got to your first target. What do? Well, when you start to get setups that are obviously against the way you're going, that may be a good time to bring your stop to break even. That's what I was saying. But don't bring your stop to break even too quickly. Don't just bring it to break even at the 100% initial risk level on intraday charts all the time. Only use that 100% initial risk level if you're obviously against a clear large trend picture, which some of you will do if you're more aggressive trader. But in this particular example, you could quite easily say, well, actually, these sell setups here are coming in against what is a long trade you're in. At the very least, be sensible and bring your stop to break even. There was another history triangle there, and actually if I right mouse click over that, do analysis, that was actually VS setup. Now that wasn't a good VS setup to take because it was only failing around a minor pivot. Remember, VS setups we like when they are making an obvious failure, and I mean failure by moving beyond, then snapping back again in and around a major pivot. So if that VS setup had been coming in down here somewhere, in other words, the failure of the market to make new lows below that major low there, then that would be a good one to take. So for you guys, at the moment, you'll know that VS is not a good one to take. Again, that's why we like you to come into these webinars. So even though it's on a blue MTP trend, you don't just take these blindly. You want to make sense of how everything's going. I was told the YM is at potential resistance now. So let's go out to 15 minutes. Yes, it is. So there's the last pivot high. Do a decision point. There it is at higher time frame resistance. If we come down to your 3-minute chart, there we go. It's at higher time frame resistance. Is that going to be a good trade setup? Nobody knows. I don't know. All I know is that if you get stopped out, that will be a 1 hour loss. If it goes down to the profit target, that will be a 2.7 hour profit. That's all trading's about. Let's have a look on a 24-hour chart as well. Yeah, there's the last major high. And it's a bit beyond that. So it's not great on a 24-hour chart, but it is on that one. So yes, we'll have to wait and see. So good example there in real time. If you're stopped out, that'll be a 1 hour loss. If it goes down to your target, at least a 2.7 hour profit. And that's all trading is. You never know whether these trades will actually unfold. All you can do is wait till the picture becomes clear, which it is in this case at higher time frame resistance. Our MTP trend is gray. So you're exactly right, Sylvian. A potentially good looking trade setup, but nobody knows whether they'll turn out a profitable trade. TJ, the best or the highest potential profit trades are normally the wave 3 ones or the VS ones, the volume spike. That's why I like the W3 trade setup, which was the one we looked at earlier on that chart there, because it's a potential wave 3, and that has potentially the largest move in relation to the initial risk. Randolph, if there's no clear picture, well, then you don't have any trades. So that was you're looking at here. You're looking at this day here, which was last Friday. Yeah, I was looking at this. There wasn't any particular support. It was just no clear picture. Yeah, you're exactly right. So the only thing I was looking at here then from Friday, that was the major low on Friday. Here's my support zone for yesterday, which was Monday. So you can see initially it looked like it was coming in nicely, came down to 15-minute support. It started to go up. Our MTP trend started to go blue. We got some sell setups there, and nothing unfolded as it should have done. You can see I did actually myself put a potential resistance up there, thinking that if the market got up to that level and our MTP trend changed, that might well be a potential sell, but it just didn't do it. So yesterday was not a picture, was not a clear picture at all. So exactly, Randolph, you're dead right. Yesterday was not a clear picture. Seth, I'm not quite sure what you mean by the pivot from the completed 5-wave move. Which into here at the moment where it is now. Or from yesterday. Further back, not quite sure where you mean. Perhaps you could send me an email and let me know on that. Right. So that's all I want to talk about today. Hopefully you've enjoyed today's webinar, and hopefully it's been good looking at the daily stocks with the weekly sort of large trend and looking at the index, so you can get an idea of using MTPredictor on sort of daily stocks for like a longer term position, and also again reviewing what we're looking at on our real-time charts as we look at this setup unfolding quite nicely here. We'll see how that ticks along, and yeah, what we'll do is we'll do it all again next week. I'm pleased to be back. PH, I think I've dropped you an email on that, so if you want to drop me another email, we can talk about that offline. So yeah, so everyone have a good trading week. Hopefully you enjoy it, and hopefully you get some good setups. And as we watch the NQ dropping quite nicely there, we'll see what that trade does. And otherwise, have a good trading week, everyone, and we'll do it all again next week. Cheers, everybody. Bye.